to check in with our friends at CNN, that's what I think, where the commentators are constantly inveighing against President Donald Trump and his policies, despite the fact that many of his policies are popular. They poll well. In fact, they poll well according to CNN. That's right, Harry Anton, CNN's pollster, who, in all fairness, does a terrific job, is out with another poll delivering some sobering results for Democrats and the mainstream media. You ready for this? Despite the incoherence of the tariff plan that is not broadly popular if you poll the tariff plan specifically, voters still trust Trump, Donald Trump, on the economy more so than Democrats. Trump is up 8 points over the Dems. Watch this.
Yeah, you would think after all of the waves, Kate Baldwin, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error, plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party.
Here's a little bit more from that clip.
How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me?
Oh, Enton goes on to note, it's not just CNN's poll. According to a new Ipsos poll, respondents said the GOP has a better economic plan, actually, than the Democrats by a margin of 12 points. That's an increase from 1 year ago. It's getting better for them. Trump's GOP is doing even better on the central question, the state of the economy, than ever before. Now, what this suggests to me is that for all the hand-wringing from the mainstream media about Trump, tariffs, trade, etc., voters just don't trust the Democrats on the economy whatsoever. Maybe they don't know what Democrats stand for, or maybe they remember the Biden economy. They don't think of it fondly. Whatever it is, it's going to be a major problem for the Dems in 2026 midterms. If Trump can propose tariffs, remove tariffs, tariff harder, tariff softer, back on tariffs, back off, have various members of his administration disagree about the tariffs and contradict each other on camera, and still retain the fundamental trust of the American people, what are the Democrats even doing? They're doomed. They're doomed, Lindsey. I'm so sorry. They're doomed.
I know you're so happy about this news. I couldn't believe what I was watching yesterday. This only tells me one thing, that GOP branding works even without results, right? Yeah. So there are plenty anti-consumer policies, including the tariffs, and somehow the GOP still has a hold on the idea, which is really an idea that they handle the economy better. Actually, when Biden was president in 2023, the unemployment rate was 3.4%. What is it right now? 4.2. So it's up underneath Trump. And so that's what I think people need to understand, is to look at what's going on. Look, do you actually feel better? Don't compare it to Trump's first term. Compare it to right now. Do you feel better than last year, or exactly the same?
People
or
saying
has
yes.
It gotten worse?
People saying yes.
No one's shopping. No, I don't believe that it's gotten better.
It's the inflation of it all, don't you think? Inflation is not nearly as bad as it was under Biden, and people see prices. I mean, they got mad at the tariffs because they saw the spike in a couple prices of goods, and they didn't want that, and then the tariffs got eased up on, and the situation looks better. They trust the GOP more. And maybe they think Trump is actually responsive to what their concerns are being expressed.
I think that the Democrats really need to work on their messaging. We've been saying that over and over again. It's just about what is the message for the next year, the next 2 years, and the next 4 years. Because I think that they're missing a core part of their audience that wants to know, okay, besides Trump not doing a great job, what are the new offerings you're bringing to the table? And so that's a critique that I'll always say about the Democratic Party, because there is a huge, wide open space to criticize Trump in every way, and everyone is doing that. But what are your solutions that will bring the economy down? Because we know that Trump went on the campaign trail and rallied off a bunch of solutions that he has not enacted that caused people to believe that he was really going to be the change that the economy and Americans are ready to see. And as we can see, nothing changed. Everyone feels pretty much the same as the last year or two. And so I think it's just really about marketing, and we know that President Trump is a marketing expert at this point.
I think it's just about marketing. I think people understand, I think they know it in their bones, that with Democrats in charge, you get a lot of big government spending policies, you get investigations into major companies, you get so-called consumer financial protection that is actually just about passing the cost of the penalty onto the customers themselves. Everything gets more expensive. Regulations are more tightly enforced. It's impossible to build things. It's harder to start businesses. You just have a business unfriendly climate that trickles down to everything else. That hurts employment. That hurts innovation. It hurts wage growth. It hurts prices. That's what you get under Democratic governance. Joe Biden promised to be a different kind of Democrat from the what I would describe as radical left economic interventionism and just be normal, business-friendly, moderate Democrat. That's what he ran on. That's not what the American people think they got at all. We're now wondering if that's because he was actually not totally cognitively there for the entirety of the presidency, and actually it was much more liberal and progressive-minded advisors making the policies over the course of the administration. Maybe it's not his fault. Doesn't really matter either way. That's the result, and people remember that, and so they're moving permanently into the Republican fold, which doesn't mean they like everything that Trump does or like everything that Republicans do. Tariffs are mostly a loser, although I think if you make an argument that we need to be mindful of China specifically and try to move some manufacturing away for national security adjacent reasons from China, you can make an argument for it, less so for tariffing like Penguin Island or whatever. I'm not saying there's no criticisms you can have of the Trump policies. I have lots of criticisms of them, but overall, if you put it to a vote, people seem to like it better than the alternative.
Well, I think when you think about everything that President Trump has done since he's been in office, when you think about what the Department of Government Efficiency has done, when you think about this upcoming big, beautiful bill that might cut a ton of people's Medicaid and just lower the taxes for rich people, I think that there are tons of Americans that are going to feel even worse if everything that he wants to do is enacted.
Because Americans like higher taxes?
No, Americans like lower taxes for all, but they're not going to affect all.
Lower taxes for all?
They're not going to affect all. And we know the trickle-down theory has been disproven multiple times that it doesn't exactly work. Yeah, well, I'd say that. And so I just think that we need to make sure that we're looking at history and allowing it to tell us what actually happens is, you know, the economy doesn't boom when only rich people get tax breaks.
Not only rich
especially
people,
when
everybody.
you do it on the back of people losing Medicaid, because what happens if you can't afford health bills, if you can't afford any of that stuff, how can you come out of a bad situation that many Americans are in right now?
Low-income Americans don't pay significant tax. I mean, the tax
No, but they would now have to pay all their medical bills
because
they've disqualified out of Medicaid due to this big, beautiful bill. So then what happens to somebody who was decently making it and then all of a sudden loses all their health insurance? Well, now you have $0 and now you are bankrupt because you're paying for all your medical bills when the government agreed for years and decades to step in and help you with that when you're going through a hard time.
We can't just confiscate more money from wealthy, productive people and transfer it to low-income people and solve all our problems. That's not going to work. We can't just suck more money out of rich people and fix all the problems.
Well, sometimes businesses pay very low taxes, less than human beings.
I hope they pay zero taxes.
And so that's why, you know, we can actually have businesses pay their fair share. I think that that's a fair argument, especially if the average American is paying a lot of their paycheck. Why can't huge businesses pay a decent amount that goes back into making our country comfortable for everyone?
I think what makes the country comfortable is having businesses thrive, and if you confiscate more of their products, people don't even want to start businesses if that's going to be the case.
It's a different mindset about thinking about the collective rather than just thinking about self. You know, the collective does better when we all give people an equal opportunity, a fair shake.
Borg-like thinking. Very, I do not like the collective. Up next, Steve Bannon says that he wants Lindsey Graham thrown in jail. Let's find out why. MAGA firebrand Steve Bannon says that he wants Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican, in jail.
News Nation's Chris Cuomo and Bannon were discussing Graham's recent visit to Ukraine with Senator Richard Blumenthal. Ukraine launched a massive attack on Russia this week, destroying 40 aircraft after the two senators' visit.
Bannon accused Graham of stirring the pot in Ukraine. Let's watch.
Two things ought to happen. Either cancel his passport and don't let him back in the country, or put him in jail if he comes back. Lindsey Graham is stirring it up right now. And people better wake up to the fact that we're getting sucked into this war. And if we get sucked in much more, it's going to be tough.
I'm just saying you can't be throwing people in jail because you don't like what they say. That's my only point. I'm not saying that you're wrong about where this might lead and how dangerous it is. And that's why I wanted you on to discuss it.
Russia had launched its largest drone attack of the war before Ukraine's most recent strike. Representatives from both sides met for another round of peace talks, and they did agree to swap dead and injured troops, but not much else. Now, multiple outlets are reporting that Russia launched an attack on civilians, that killed 3 and injured 20.
Senator Blumenthal wrote on X, quote, Putin is intensifying his reign of terror through bombing civilians, kidnapping children, and mobilizing troops, despite Ukraine's astonishingly effective drone attack on 5 Russian bases. Ukraine shows amazing guts, ingenuity, daring, and bold drone attacks across Russia. Putin has underestimated Ukrainian resolve and ability from the beginning. So have many of our own leaders.
Well, look, I don't think Lindsey Graham should be in jail. That's
for saying his thoughts. Yeah.
Well, it's not just for saying his thoughts. He's a important leader of our country. He's a prominent senator. He's not a private citizen just expressing his views. He is there as part of the alliance with Ukraine, and he is someone who is constantly advocating for, not just advocating as a private citizen, but as a member of the government, for greater military intervention all across the world. He wants World War III with Iran. He wants to give Ukraine everything they want to continue this war with Russia. That is not where the rest of the GOP is. Frankly, I don't think it's where most of the American people are. I think we all recognize that it is very unfortunate Ukraine was invaded by Russia. It's a terrible thing that happened. Putin is responsible. Ukraine is well within its rights to continue defending its territory and to attack Russia, in my view, as they're being attacked. Now, that goal of that, however, should be to get a more favorable bargaining position for the peace deal, because this is only going to end with a peace agreement. It's not going to end with Ukraine defeating Russia and evicting them from the country. That is a fantasy. It is a fantasy that Lindsey Graham is playing into.
I had low expectations for the peace talks in the beginning because I think what Russia has shown is that they're not trying to really come to the table with any real thoughtful negotiations. They want a list of demands met, and that's it. And so I don't think that at the same time they're spending 2 hours on the phone with President Trump to discuss solutions and then bombing Ukraine the next day or within a week, that Ukraine, who is the victim here, not the aggressor, should not defend themselves and do things back. I think they should. And I think that Lindsey Graham is probably just pushing forward the idea that, we should help them create a stalemate, not to win the war, a stalemate to make Russia actually really negotiate. I think keeping 20% of Ukraine, keeping Crimea, these are all things that Europe and the European Union do not want to see happen. And Europe, we have allies there. So we should think about the betterment of the entire world and what position they'll be in if Russia does this again or continues thinking they can do anything that they want. What message are we sending to the entire world that dictators can do anything and we just stand by? After we supported Ukraine for so long, we can see it through and at least help them get to a stalemate by just releasing the funds that were already approved for them when Biden was in office.
I've said this before when we discussed this issue. I think they're in the best situation they could possibly be in right now. If we'd had peace sooner, maybe they would have retained more of the country. I don't see any scenario where this war comes to an end and all of Ukraine remains in Ukrainian hands. I think the territories that Russia conquered, they are not giving back, no way, no how. There's no way to convince them to do that, and we don't have the military might or the will to eject them from the country. Europe doesn't have the will to do that either, and it's their backyard. If they thought it was so existential, you say, well, what's next? Who's going to get attacked next? If Germany feels that way, if France feels that way, if Britain feels that way, they could send in troops. They could actually have World War III over this. They're not going to do that because they don't think it's worth it. They don't think that this goes beyond Ukraine. They're not convinced of it. They're not even convinced of it enough to stop taking Russian energy. They're still engaged in commerce with Russia. So to my mind, that means this is a dispute between two countries that, again, is bad, and Ukraine is the victims here, and we have supported them, which was very kind of us. I would say we supported them without any thought-out plan, so we're willing to throw as many Ukrainian lives into the meat grinder as necessary for as long as possible. I'm not sure that's a very humane attitude to have, so I am substantially with Steve Bannon here in saying, let's bring this to an end. No more money for Ukraine, no more there aren't even going to be soldiers to use the weapons anymore.
I think we're overestimating the effect that this is, or underestimating the effect that this is having on Russia. Russia is also spending a ton of money and doesn't want to continue to be in this war, and actually thought that it would be done by now, right? Thought they would get what they want and move forward. So the fact that we're here this much later from the start date shows us that Ukraine has held its own and there has been a sort of a stalemate. And so just coming from a president that on the campaign trail said more than 50 times, President Trump, that he was going to stop this in 24 hours, even if it was an exaggeration, it seems like the great negotiator, the people voted in office because he had this great negotiating ability, is unable to do anything like he promised. And so that is what American people should be looking at and wondering, well, what's the plan now? The plan can't be, well, it's both of their fault, it's not my issue, because that's what he's saying now. He's kind of making Ukraine look like they have some kind of part in playing of this aggression that happened to them, which they don't. And he's kind of blaming both sides and saying this, I don't know why we jumped into it. That's not a leadership solution from the world power.
I mean, if you want to talk about blame, there is some blame to go around, including on the U.S. side. The way we dangled NATO membership for Ukraine. We had to commit to either strategy. We could have been very clear that Ukraine does not meet the criteria for NATO. It is not brought down as political corruption to a sufficient level. It should not be in NATO. We could have made that clear, and that might have mollified Russia. Or we could have actually just admitted them to NATO, and then Russia can attack them, or else
then we would have been in a war. So is that better to you?
Either way would have been better than saying, we might want to have them join NATO, but we're not going to do it. We don't know. And it created ambiguity for Russia. We just got to be clear. For deterrence, for nuclear deterrence with powers, you have to be very clear about what happens if X, Y, Z things take place. By leaving them in this limbo middle ground, we spooked Russia. We made them want to intervene, and we didn't actually give them a reason not to intervene because the country wasn't in NATO. So I think we picked the worst of all middle ground courses.
But now that we're here, because I do agree that that was not the best tactic to dangle NATO over Ukraine. But I do think that now that we're here, what's the solution? Like, we only could be forward thinking. We can't reverse time and figure out what Biden could have done differently. And a lot of times we hear coming from Trump, what has Biden done? He blames a lot of things on Biden, everything on Biden, even the recent unfortunate attack that happened in Boulder. He's talking about Biden. It's like, okay, but you are the president. Yeah. At some point, you have to come up with ideas.
That wasn't Biden's fault, but this was Biden's fault, and the best way forward is a deal that nobody's going to like on our side, for sure. But I don't know what else we can possibly do.
A deal that makes at least one concession, at least one. Jasmine Crockett is vowing to at least launch an impeachment inquiry into Trump if given the oversight gavel. That's next.
Dallas representative Jasmine Crockett saying she would pursue an impeachment inquiry into President Trump.
Crockett is aiming to be the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee as she doubles down on her criticism of the president. Here she is on Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whitley. Let's watch.
Let's say you were elected to ranking member and the Democrats take the House and you become chair of that committee. Would you pursue impeachment?
I would absolutely at least do an inquiry. Absolutely.
Crockett claims that Republicans tell her they like her. What? Let's watch.
Where I've had Republicans walk up to me and tell me how much they like me. Tell me that they
you
don't.
haven't. Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
You'd be surprised. Oh, yeah.
This is what Crockett said about her 2028 presidential ambitions. Take a look.
Your name is showing up on polling for 2028. Do you have aspirations to lead your party or run for a national office?
No.
I think Republicans do like her. She is meeting, when they go low, we go high. No, she's meeting them right on the ground. Marjorie Taylor Greene, you want to play games? I'm going to meet you. I'm going to be rude. I'm going to meet you right there. And I think that, Republicans who are engaging and, supporting this type of behavior from the top level of our government should certainly support Jasmine Crockett and all the things that she does when she's outspoken, to say the least.
Yes, I think they like her in the sense that they liked very much, AOC a couple years ago when she would generate more headlines, more fodder for conservative media, websites, that kind of thing. That's what they like about her. She's going to pursue another impeachment inquiry. Wonderful. There's just going to be tons of that, I guess. Conservatives, Trump people probably would love to have him under attack again because that is when he is at his most popular among the base. He, in fact, consolidated control of the Republican Party despite his loss in 2020, specifically because of the efforts to actually put him in jail, to prosecute him for election-related stuff and other things. That is what rallied all the Republicans back to his side. If none of that had ever happened, he might not have been the nominee. So they're keep them coming. That's the attitude.
Look, I agree with you. I think holding leaders accountable is appropriate. Like she wants to look into the Qatar jet that he was given, which I said we should raise an eyebrow to. But I also know that even though I love Jasmine Crockett, like firing up his base in this way is not effective. It's a bad idea, especially. So I agree with you when Democrats don't have a full strategy for the midterms and the next election season. This is not what they want to spend another 3 years.
They're really good at lawfare. They're really bad at winning elections.
And just like I tell President Trump, the strategy can't be to blame your predecessor and constantly blame Biden. I don't think that Democrats should waste any more time trying to find a reason to blame Trump or put him in jail, or we should really
got to beat him.
Yeah, you got to just try to figure out how to beat him. And I think you have just to consider also broad appeal in your messaging. So part of the argument that a lot of conservatives are making is that the Democratic Party is swaying and they're taking the working class voter. And while I don't agree with that totally, I think that some people are just tired of having these arguments specifically about Trump and about certain issues that don't directly affect their pocketbooks and wallets. And so while we just saw that study on the economy and how everyone's doing, I think that's a great place to focus with like some real solutions and actually talking to people like in Dallas or in local communities and seeing what they want and gathering some real data on that as opposed to another impeachment inquiry on President Trump. Because I can almost guarantee that most people that I know on both sides of the aisle do not want to see this happen again, do not want to see the time and resources of our government spent that way. And so I think she needs to be mindful outside of what she might want, that there's something else that the Democratic Party is looking for.
Absolutely. This is the kind of thing, well, they're in a difficult position because there are some ardent Democratic liberal partisans who are like, why are we not fighting? Why is our party not, making legal efforts? Why are we not? They can't host committee meetings because they don't control Congress. They can't do subpoena stuff. But if they were to retake Congress, retake the House in the midterms as is possible, then they could do that kind of inquiries again. That's what ardent liberal partisans want. But I don't think the swing voters, the moderate, middle ground, winnable voters, they don't seem to be motivated by, oh, you're telling me Donald Trump did something wrong and you're going to investigate him? There's not a voter left on earth who has not already confronted that reality, contended with it, and made up their mind about it. I just don't believe you can win more people to the Democratic cause by pointing out, even if you passionately believe it and you think you have evidence, here are the couple actions I think Trump has taken that are criminal or impeachable or whatever it is, and really double down on that, and you're going to convince people to vote for Democrats. This has been tested. It doesn't work.
And
it just doesn't work.
I think that most of the country, even though we exaggerate, and social media does a great job at exaggerating the thoughts of the extreme feelings on both sides, I think that most people are somewhere in the middle and decide, you know, they may vote Republican, they may vote Democrat all the time, but they fall somewhere in the middle about Trump's criminal past, or you know, they would prefer to have had a different president. Polls showed us that they would prefer.
They don't like it, but they know that
Trump.
everybody's corrupt.
Right, but once they got to the point, they're like, if we went through this whole election season and all you guys talked about is Trump's past and everything, that the reason why he shouldn't be president, I want you to run on something as opposed to I'm not Trump. That worked for Biden the first time. What are you running on? I think there's strategic considerations for the party that have to be made on what the messaging is, and specifically focusing on actually having real effect, which would be in the midterms. If they take control of Congress, then they can have a different conversation on what's next, but the immediate conversation should not be trying to impeach a man that won't be president again in 3 years anyway. There'll be an entire new set and new wave. As for Jasmine Crockett wanting to run for president, her name has come up multiple times as the leader of the party in this new way, even the dark woke term that the conservatives love to bring up about the fact that she kind of is meeting fire with fire, and that's their answer to President Trump. I think if she's going to take
meeting fire with like gratuitous insults,
and so is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, come on.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's not the leader of the Republican Party.
Yeah, but she's leading it with the commentary, and so they're saying dark woke is meeting her there, right? We don't have somebody who's running for president doing that, and I would not like to see somebody else who runs for president on either side behaving in the ways that Trump behaves sometimes.
At least if Marjorie Taylor Greene was in charge, you would actually have conservative opposition to the big, beautiful bill. She and Thomas Massie, and just like they're almost the only two, have pointed out that they are failing to implement the Trump vision, the government spending cuts, by passing this bill. I wish she was in charge.
So that's what I'm saying. We need Marjorie Taylor Greene to speak up and decide what her platform is. And if she's going to be the new face or the young wave, she has to consider the entire party. And some people, yes, they do want to lean into another impeachment. But the majority of Americans are exhausted by this.
Here we go again. Next up on Rising, Stephen Miller reportedly fuming at ICE officials over their low deportation rates. We will discuss. Stay with us. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller was reportedly furious with ICE officials during a tense meeting in late May.
The Washington Examiner reports that 3 current and former federal immigration officials dished them the details of the exchange.
Now, one of those officials who spoke with attendees of the meeting that day told the Examiner, Miller came in there and eviscerated everyone. You guys aren't doing a good job. You're horrible leaders. He just ripped into everybody. He had nothing positive to say about anybody. He shot down morale. The official continued, quote, Stephen Miller wants everybody arrested. Why aren't you at Home Depot? Why aren't you at 7-Eleven?
Miller also became irate per the Examiner when an ICE official told Miller that they were targeting criminal illegal immigrants and not illegal immigrants in general. The ICE official reportedly said that their priorities were in line with the DHS and White House messaging.
An ICE spokesperson told the Examiner that Miller did not say many of the things the outlet reported on, so they're denying this report. Miller himself did not respond to the Examiner's request for comment.
Senior fellow at the American Immigration Council, Aaron Reichlin, Melanchek, responded to the story on X, writing, quote, why are ICE officers going into immigration courts to arrest people with no criminal records? People diligently showing up to their court hearings who haven't violated any of the terms of their release because Stephen Miller wants high numbers and doesn't care how he gets it.
Meanwhile, political commentator Ian Miles Chong wrote, Miller is correct. ICE should go beyond detaining and deporting only criminals, as every illegal alien is, in fact, a criminal. But it is a matter of priorities because there's finite resources that ICE has, and there are millions of people in the country illegally, so you just have to do prioritization. It's impossible to go, I don't even think there's neither the money nor the actual political will to go door to door and detain everyone who is in the country illegally. So you have to have priorities, and the priorities of Tom Homan, of the federal government, of Donald Trump, are people who have engaged in other crimes, including and especially violent crimes, or people who have terrorist affiliations or gang affiliations. That's who ICE is spending time with. So I thought this was a notable point from Stephen Miller that he's not satisfied with that. He actually just wants the mass deportation of everyone.
Yeah, I think if Stephen Miller wanted real immigration reform that was long-lasting, that would target anybody who wasn't coming here through the correct quote-unquote channels, then we would have allowed Congress to pass a bill in 2024.
Well, he wants immigration reform. He just wants it reformed so that there's no immigration.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, Senate Republicans wouldn't have blocked it twice in 2024, and then maybe we could have started enacting removing criminals from the country first, which is a very low number. And, yeah, but protecting our borders goes into the broader conversation about immigration, right? They're trying to figure out ways to lower immigration. The argument is that a lot of people are coming here to commit crimes, but even though the number is very minuscule compared to the actual number of immigrants we have that are committing crimes, more everyday Americans are committing crimes, you know, basic people. So I think that whole argument is skewed. But going after people who are criminals, everyone can agree upon. The entire American public agreed that we do need immigration reform. And I think everyone came to the table, and Democrats tried to show good faith and come to the table in 2024. So hopefully Congress can come up with a real solution to immigration because, yes, the numbers are down, but also people are not comfortable with the way that the President Trump and Republicans are going about it, you know, sending people to countries that they don't need to be.
I don't know that people are uncomfortable with it. I think people are mostly fine with it. But
well, no, I think polls have.
Liberals are not fine.
No, polls have shown that Americans do think immigration needs to go down, but they don't know about the way that Trump is going about it and the administration is going about it. So to exaggerate that even more and just be parked up at 7-Eleven or Home Depot seems so extreme that we need to come up with a strategy. I don't agree that that's the next step.
Part of it is there are a couple different arguments that are being made against mass migration here. There's a sort of economic harm that I don't find particularly persuasive. It's not in my area of the right where I have much overlap, but some of the America First national conservative crowd, they want, frankly, it doesn't matter if it's illegal or legal. They want less immigration because they think particularly low-skill immigrants compete with American jobs and are lowering wages for everybody, and they think, you know, America is for the Americans, and they want, maybe there's a kind of social policy as well, so they just want less immigration. They don't care if it's illegal or legal. They want less immigration. That's one argument. Then there's a different kind of argument, which is more about national security and safety, that doesn't really impact so much the high-skill immigrants, unless they're coming from China, and we think there's some national security rationale for that reason. I think that's plausible and perfect for the government to scrutinize that. I think that is a more legitimate reason to want to restrict or at least be cautious about who is coming into the country. We are not obligated to admit people who are hostile to the U.S. for terrorist reasons or gang reasons or associations with communist China. That is fine to me. We can look at that, but it should be done with due process and not just overbroad kicking out everyone who's an international student at Harvard is not what I would say is the right answer.
And I think America's at its best when it values order and humanity, right? A lot of immigrants are coming here because they're fleeing dire circumstances. For example,
oh, that's where you lose me.
Well, people that I've interviewed, I know you don't have the same amount of empathy that I have. People who are fleeing dire circumstances from places like Venezuela that I've sat with and spoken to, they're not coming here to just steal our, jobs. And they're literally trying to work hard and boost the economy, do any job that is in line with any skill that they have, and really try to make a great life here in America. And so we can provide the opportunity to do that or figure out a reform to our immigration system, but trying to mass deport them and throw them out feels unethical, and like we're not trying to find real solutions. Like, countries thrive on immigration. That brings a diversity of thought and experience. It brings low and high level jobs. We talk about that with foreign students coming in for Harvard and other schools. And so I think trying to just throw everyone out is really extreme, and there needs to be a more thoughtful solution to something that countries have thrived on since the beginning of time.
If they're coming here to work, that's absolutely fine.
As most of them are.
That's fine, as long as they're not taking away more from the social protection welfare system that we have, that's fine. And then as long as they're not hostile or violent or criminal. I mean, every time an illegal immigrant, as was the case yesterday, this horrific attack in Boulder.
Well, he had a visa that he overstayed, so it's
well,
not the same thing as, that's not the same argument
as
somebody who crossed over the border illegally. He literally had a visa and overstayed, wasn't in the country properly. He might have stayed anyway if Trump was president and not Biden. He might have overstayed his visa. How can you control that? But you just said we can't go door to door. No, but we can't go door to door. So we're focusing, we agree on criminals.
No.
He wouldn't be looked at as a criminal prior to committing the criminal act, so we wouldn't have been at his door. Right. So that argument is kind of...
That's not the point I was making. What I was saying is the argument that people who are supportive of more levels of immigration, and I count myself in this category, need to recognize a fundamental problem that when things like this happen, it radicalizes the whole country, the whole population, against being accepting of more immigrants. So we need to screen carefully, even if you're for maximal levels of immigration, because things like this, what happened yesterday, this makes people furious when they find out that this person should not have been in the country. Yes, he didn't cross the border illegally. He overstayed a traveler's visa and then a work permit. He should not have been here. He hates Israel and Jewish people, and he set them freaking on fire in a public place, and that is going to really, that affects people's perceptions of who's coming into our country. Why are we being so accepting and so welcoming to people who want to set American citizens on fire?
Well, I think the perception gets shifted because of the conversation that our highest officials are having, that this is an immigration problem rather than somebody who is acting terroristically single-handedly, right? It has nothing to do with immigration and everything to do with a bad actor, everything to do with a criminal that should be in jail. And so when you conflate those two, then yes, Americans will be stoked with fear, thinking that all immigrants will bring problems, which is why I said we should bring the rhetoric down and get to the heart of the issue, which is protecting Americans. Coming up next, Sesame Street post causes so much meltdown from conservatives. That's next.
Charlie Kirk and other conservatives are slamming PBS for celebrating Pride Month.
It all started with a social media post from Sesame Street. Take a look. The official Sesame Street account posting this illustration saying, quote, "On our street, everyone is welcome. Together, let's build a world where every person and family feels loved and respected for who they are. Happy Pride Month."
Conservative podcaster Michael Knowles was having none of that. He responded with, quote, "Nothing to see here, just a publicly funded puppet show promoting weird sex stuff to your 3-year-old. And Charlie Kirk fired his own shot, saying, "We must defund PBS and NPR immediately. No excuses, GOP."
In response, many took to Blue Sky and X to defend the show and thanked them, posting messages like, quote, "Good on Sesame Street," and, quote, "I love that Sesame Street stays unbothered," and "continue to be awesome." So far, there's been no response from the backlash from Sesame Street or PBS. So we'll just see what happens there. This conversation is such a manufactured culture war. Recognizing pride is not grooming. Sesame Street has always been a place that discusses inclusion. It's also not sex. Discussing that people date each other is not sex. And so empathy, acceptance, and people shaking hands, it's colorful hands shaking on a post, and that's what they're getting riled up about. There's so many things to actually rile people up in this world.
Don't you
no, that's
other things me.
No, this
defund it. I would defund it.
I told you yesterday
now.
that, just like I said, I don't like that in both sides of the aisle, we overuse this term, calling people a Nazi or anything dramatic like that. I don't like overusing the term grooming for something like a Sesame Street post, because that actually happens to real children. It's actually a dangerous thing, and this is not what's happening here. So everything doesn't have to be the most extreme example. Just because you don't live the lifestyle, okay, so then you don't be a gay person, you don't be in the LGBTQ community. How does it affect you to allow PBS to explain that?
Because they have to pay for it. Because they have to pay for it, Lindsey. I agree with you, except taxpayers are being asked to pay for it. They don't want to pay. Conservative people who have the biblical definition of marriage, believe in that, don't want to have to pay for advocacy, political advocacy that doesn't align with that.
But inclusion is for all American families.
Okay, you would easily recognize this if the message of Sesame Street, let's say Sesame Street was run by religious conservatives, and the message they were putting out on Pride Month or week was, marriage is between one man and a woman, and same-sexual behavior is degenerate and wrong. Let's say that was the message. Would you, a liberal person, want to have your tax dollars going to fund that message?
No,
of course
that's
not.
not the same thing.
It's the exact same thing.
Seeing,
it's the exact
no, Robbie.
same
It's
thing.
like shake my hand. It's like seeing a white and a black hand on a screen, right?
Okay.
That means that back in the day, that was not appropriate to see, right? We could not shake hands, and that's appropriate. There were laws actually against us being in the same spaces and same room. So if Sesame Street would have posted that at a time when that was the law of the land, then we would have said, wow, forward-thinking Sesame Street, because one day you're going to be on the right side of history. That is what Sesame Street is doing.
I would have said don't fund PBS.
No, that's actual
that
real
reason.
life. That's actual real life. Like, inclusion is a part of our life. This is like manufactured. People actually live and go to school with people who like the same sex. That's going to be a part of your life. There's no way you can avoid it. There's no way as a parent you can protect your kid from seeing that in the real world. This is a whole entire world. You can walk down the street and see two men holding hands. Is your kid going to be swayed in some way? Like, I don't understand why that's a bad image to see and why we should portray it as bad. It's just called being inclusive and aware.
There are millions of people who disagree with you. Millions of people. I'm not one of them. I'm not a social conservative at all. But this is how a lot of people feel. This is how religious conservatives feel. And they're not trying to force it on you. They're just saying they don't want their taxpayer dollars to have to pay for it. Just like I wouldn't want to pay for taxpayer advocacy speech of all sorts of things. Why don't we just leave people alone, and you can have your liberal TV show where puppets, hold hands or whatever, and that's fine, and I don't have to pay for it, and other people have their puppet show. Like, nobody's asking you to subsidize VeggieTales or something. Like, it's just that's the religious
inclusivity is not partisan. There's nothing about inclusivity that's partisan. It's teaching your kid how to be a better human by accepting and looking at other people that may not relate to them in any way and saying, okay, I still respect and see you. That's all. Not I want to be just like you. I just respect and see you. And that should be a principle that we teach all of our children.
Religious conservatives don't. Again, I don't agree with them. This is not my view, but their view is that it is wrong to encourage this kind of inclusion. They think it is morally wrong. They think it violates their principles, and there's millions of people who feel that way.
Well, Sesame Street has done an amazing job at teaching hard subjects to children, and if this is something that's hard for you and your family to talk about, I think you're the exact audience that this is for, and you should sit down with your child and watch why people who are different than you should be treated with the same amount of respect.
I also don't think
it's a basic lesson for basic people who can't understand that.
Government subsidized children's education in the day of YouTube. You can go
No,
on
YouTube is a
and
slippery
find-
slope. You don't want a kid on YouTube. Let me tell you, you don't want them just scowling the net.
There's the
on
YouTube. There's a YouTube Kids branch where you can just have them on there, where there's great programming for children. I have a million nieces and nephews that they show me interesting programs for kids that are really well crafted narratives and teach good important lessons and have compelling characters. It's so much better than what government puts together.
There's a simple solution. If you don't like what you see, you can change the channel. You can do anything else.
But you have to still
could not-
pay for it?
The government is paying for it. You're not really
So where do
affected in
we
any
get
real
there?
way. Like, come on, you're not.
You are
no one's,
affected.
no one's affected in any deep
That's
way.
all they're
PBS
saying.
is not taking
Nobody's
their
saying
actual.
if
like,
Charlie
no,
Kirk and Michael Knowles were
tariffs-
saying make
tariffs
PBS
are affecting
illegal,
your pockets.
then we would be
There's
on
so
the
many
same
other
side.
things
They're just saying
affecting your
you don't
pocket.
want to pay for it.
No, I think it's fine to teach kids how to be good people. We need more good people in this world, and
I
then we
think
wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now.
That's a kind of a Mott and Bailey argument where you're saying it's just teaching kids to be good people when the actual message of it is not just be
No,
good
it's
people,
teaching
but
kids
that
to
you
be
should
aware that
accept
there's different people than you,
and that you
and
should
just
be accepting.
No,
of it.
just acknowledge that they should be treated with the same respect. You don't have to accept them. You don't have to put them in your life. You don't have to be one. You don't have to become a gay person. You can literally just let them be, see them, learn that this exists in the world, and move on.
Well,
I don't understand
I
why
don't think
that
it's not.
offends
It's saying that
anybody.
it doesn't exist. I think their point is that they do not morally accept it. And so
Well,
you
we
don't
know
need
that
to-
when you're not, when you're not aware of what real life looks like, and you learn some things that are in the textbook that sometimes probably should be revised and that are just showing one side of history, then people are usually put in a disadvantage, a disservice when they don't know. And so I think just making kids aware that there's people that exist, since maybe some people might stay in their bubbles of echo chamber, that it might be nice for your kid to see something that might look more reflective of the world around them.
I could not more disagree. It's an echo chamber not to have any. They don't have any religious content on this program. They don't say this is what Christian people are like and what they believe. So it's entirely one-sided inclusion. Include me and my lifestyle and pay for it, or else.
Just leave Sesame Street alone. It's a kid's show. It's a kid's show. Up next on Rising, is Short King Spring officially out? We're going to get into that next.
Short King Spring could be on its way out, as popular dating app Tinder is going to include a new height filter. This new feature will allow its gold and premium members, aka those who pay for the service, to list height as a preference in their dating app profile settings. According to Tinder, The feature is a preference, not a hard filter, so it doesn't explicitly block or exclude profiles outside a certain height range.
The company told Newsweek, "We're always listening to what matters most to our Tinder users, and testing the paid height difference is a great example of how we're building with urgency, clarity, and focus." Height filters aren't new for dating apps. They've been around on apps like Hinge and Bumble for years, but still the new Tinder filter has sparked intense debate online. Conservative commentator Matt Walsh posted on X, "If they're going to put a height filter on men, then there should also be a weight filter on women. Of course, it's better to just not use the app at all, but fair is fair." But fitness YouTuber Jeff Nippard posted, "This really isn't a big deal. As a short man, if a woman doesn't find you attractive because of your height, then why would you want to be with her anyway?"
All right, so I was once, here's an anecdote I will share. I was talking to a group of friends, girls and guys, and I was talking to this guy I didn't know very well, and he seemed like a nice young man, and he was quite short. And I was like, "You should probably go up to this girl, mutual friend of ours. You should talk to her, probably see if she's interested." And he was basically like, "No, I'm dead in the water because I'm short." I was like, "Really?" Because I'd been in a relationship for a very long time. I'm not super familiar with the dating scene. I was like, "Well, you're dead in the water because you're short." It wasn't like freakishly short or something.
He wasn't 4'9".
But he was right. It turns out, this is what I've learned from my female friends, that height matters way more than I would have possibly known about. And that, because I'm just like a normal sized human being. I'm like 5'11", like average adult human male height. I don't think about height that much, but yeah, it's real hard out there for straight short males.
Well, they're going to have to go to the bar and try their luck. Like, this sounds like such entitlement.
And it's going to get harder.
You are mad that a girl has a preference? Like, women have always had preferences. So do men. Like, you might
Women
like somebody that can cook.
Irrational.
No, but it's personal. So if they want to do that, it doesn't have to do with you. It doesn't have to do with me. If they want somebody who can cook,
funny,
somebody
have to
who's
be nice,
tall,
have to be smart, has to be know how to
funny.
cook, funny but not too funny.
So
have to have a bank account.
Men are never shy about their preferences. They sit on an app and they're like, no. Like, you think that they need a Cindy Crawford, and it's like, what are you bringing to the table? How dare you, say this is what you want? And
my anecdotal experience from my friends and people I associate with is that men have standards that are far lower than women's in terms of dating partners. The camera people are laughing at me right now. They know it's true. They know it's true.
Okay, you can already filter by age. You can easily swipe when you don't like the way somebody looks on their first picture. So I don't want to see why height's an issue. Like, if I'm a woman and I'm like, I don't want somebody who I'm like looking down upon and I'm only 5'3". That's okay for me. I don't have to do that.
We're laughing about this.
And he's so riled up.
I don't have any problem. No, I think it's totally fine for them to have height. Well, although if we want to make this a very controversial segment, you're okay with height filters and attractiveness filters. Could we do and age filters we're all going to be fine with? What about racial filters? That's been a thing on other dating sites. Is that how do you feel about that one, Lindsey?
Height, come on. Like, I feel like you might just literally not want to look up or down depending on where you are. I mean, and also, you know what? Honestly, you can have a preference. If you prefer to date a black guy, if you prefer to date a white guy, go ahead. Like, why does it matter to me? You're on a dating app looking for love. I actually don't mind that. And I don't think anybody should be offended that somebody's seeking out their preference. Now, what I understand is that sometimes when you're in love, if you go out to a nice lounge, you might meet somebody who's unexpectedly your type, and you realize because of their actual personality and the characteristics that make them who they are, that you might be closing off a whole world of great people. So maybe they should be considerate about that and maybe not have expectations.
I agree with that. I think it's absolutely fine to have a type, and even to have an app that caters to or that will recommend you more of your type or filter in some way, as long as you remain open, as most people are. I mean, if your will only do one thing, one type, then it's not a type, it's a fetish, right? That's the difference there.
But also, if you
what channel are we on? We're having a totally okay conversation for TV.
But if you filter say somebody likes a short king, they can filter under. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then this could not be a bad thing for short people. I don't see why they're so riled up on TikTok. There's like a whole outrage situation about short kings getting discriminated against.
They're compensating for
and I think that we should be mindful that there are people of all heights and somebody out there for you. This could actually be a love show. This could be a dating connection show.
Yeah. I mean, it is amazing what modern technology makes possible. That you can have an app on your phone that will help recommend to you because it's learning about you people you'd be interested in dating. That's
Also, a lot of stuff's on Hinge and Tinder and all them. You could put your job title, a bunch of stuff. Not that I would know. I'm just telling you. Yeah, I'm in a serious relationship. But oh, look, we have in our ear, our producer met his wife on Match.com. So there's a lot of people. I know somebody that met on eHarmony, got married. So if you could filter the people out, but you might end up missing out your one and only if you don't leave the range really broad. But I don't think people should be offended by this. Just don't use the app or find somebody you like on the app.
We should all be open to new experiences in the year of our Lord, 2025. That does it for us today on Rising Live, the live portion of our show. But you can look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today. And please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can give us feedback on our show. How do you like how we're doing? Leave comments on YouTube. I love to read them. And we will see you back here tomorrow because the week is...
laughing still.
Are they laughing? We're really enjoying this one. Tell us what you think. Do you like those, what do we call them? Short Kings.
Short Kings, yeah.
Right, see you tomorrow. We're done. Bye-bye.
Hi, good. How are you? Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sure. How's that? Okay.
Hi, Teresa. How's it going?
Hello. Thank you for joining us.
How are you?
Good. Great hair.
Oh, thanks. I'm in Florida right now, and so the humidity is like unreal.
Oh, it looks good, though. That's not mine. Would be like 3 times the size of that in Florida. So you're doing good right now.
Awesome. Well, you know what they say, the higher the hair, the closer to heaven. So
Yep.
Okay.
HAL 9000, that's the dread-inducing artificial intelligence from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. I can't do that, Dave. Turns out